1993 Mercury Sable, second generation. Produced from 1991 to 1995 and designed by Jack Telnack, the same man who designed the XA Falcon for Ford Australia and had a hand in the Ford Probe as well. Along with the Ford Taurus and Probe, the Mercury Sable began the new aero design in American car design. It was new for us, but Australia had this aero design since the mid-'80s. But as Technology Connection said, American automotive design was shackled to sealed beam headlights for far too long. But once we were free to use molded plastic, oh, it was like a watershed moment. It was like when you found out you could get pussy by just being cool. Wrap-around headlights, wrap-around taillights, molded curved dash, puffy nipples dripping milk through an ICP t-shirt, Dolby Digital tape cassette stereo, Operation Desert Storm,
female ejaculate saved in mason jars.
1993 Mercury Sable, brought to you by my new sex move. I slap my dick across your mouth, kiss you on the cheek, and kick you down a flight of stairs. I call it
the Midnight Special.
1993 Mercury Sable, the official car of the emerging dot-com age. We've graduated from the angular 80s wedge pop-up headlight design, but more than that, in the early 90s, the US moved on from the computer worship era of the 1980s. In the 1980s, you could sell a car just by saying it has a computer in it.
My anus is growing. My car has a computer in it.
I just bought a car with a computer in it. I'm now as smart as Stephen Hawking. But by 1991, the mythic nature of the computer is over because it was something that now could exist on a desk. A home PC, even though they were very expensive compared to today, was still something that a middle-class family could have. And then the guest room became the computer room. And that era is kind of quaint. But this particular Sable is one you've seen before. You've seen it on Jalopnik, the Autopan, and other blogs. The Instagram videos of this particular Sable have been reposted many times.
This is the Cyberpunk Sable. Oh yeah,
oh, the limitations have been unlocked. Oh, this is exactly how a Mercury Sable is supposed to look. You know, George Lucas and his fatty hamburger face and trying to redo Star Wars back in the 2000s with, the computer graphic. I can't do them, but this, like so much of like trying to redigitize the past and make it look better never works. But this, oh my goodness, this works. This is the correct combination of high-tech, low-life. You hear me? I don't want light bars in the form of whatever's on the front of the Cybertruck. I want this big, fat light bar pulsing with all kinds of colors. Just give me that heavy synth. Give me that synth pop. Blue eye dress for every situation. Moving through the doorway of a nation. Move out, move out, move out, bigger, move out, I'm gonna bust! Close your eyes. Focus on your breathing. Relax with me. In through the nose, out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Aren't you glad you made this choice? Aren't you glad you chose a Mercury Sable? It has all the reassuring balance of a home-cooked meal that can never be recreated when you cook it yourself. What's a smartphone? Only landlines here, buddy. What's a GPS? How about you just focus on the supple, plush feel and the unintrusive late 80s tech? See this front bench seat with the folding armrest? Put that sucker up and your wife can reach across the seat for some hand play. It's 1993. No one is paying attention to you. Your blood pressure has never been more unremarkable. Just breathe. Sit here with me in this vanishing present. In through the nose, out through the
Mouth.
in through the nose, out through
My mouth.
Mercury Sable, the official car of that Pure Moods commercial that runs at 2 a.m. every Saturday night. You're not even going to buy the CD, no one ever did. We just watched the commercial and vibe to Enya as the NyQuil failed to take, because it's the closest a grade schooler can get to understanding what it's like to be high. The Mercury Sable, in its first generation, debuted back in '85 and lasted for 20 years before having a gap year in 2006, at which point the Montego and Milan took the spotlight. It returned to production in June of 2007 and continued until its discontinuation in 2009. But in 1985, the Sable was just a replacement for the Mercury Marquis. It was, and is, a car of medium ambition. And even then, there are weird design quirks that make you wonder what the goal even was with this car. Like how you need to remove the back seat and the seatbelt retractor entirely to get to the rear struts. Or how you have to loosen the subframe from the body to get clearance to remove the front struts. Because engineers apparently didn't take clearance into consideration when they designed this layout. Or, this is only a 5-digit odometer. In 1993, mind you, as if Ford didn't anticipate this surviving over 100,000 miles. And you apparently couldn't get 4-wheel discs unless you got the optional ABS. But, putting all that aside, the Mercury Sable is fine. It isn't a tourist show, but then it also doesn't have the burden of living up to any sort of performance standard. We have 2 Mercury Sables here. Jim provides the one with the 3.8-liter Essex V6, while Shane has the 3-liter Vulcan V6. They both make about 140 horsepower, with 685 pound-feet of torque. Now that's for Shane's, with the 3-liter Vulcan, and the 3.8-liter Essex V6 makes about the same horsepower with 215 pound-feet of torque. Now both of them are matched to a 4-speed automatic transmission, and you know what? None of these numbers matter. The engine and transmissions do not matter in these cars. Yes, these are 2 different V6s, but they both feel fundamentally the same. And who else but Ford nerds would care? And sure, you have some sort of fuel economy differences. The Vulcan V6 gets 17 city, 25 highway, and 20 combined, while the Essex offers 18 cities, 27 highway, and 21 combined. But that's barely worth making a chart to track. The appeal of the Mercury Sable is that it's a car first and a computer not at all. It's an inversion of what cars are now. Roman talked about this in last month's Roman report. The link's in the description. But your car is basically selling you out these days. Repeatedly. It's recording every drive you take and reporting on every instance of sudden acceleration and hard braking and sharp turning. And then the data brokers are selling that to the insurance companies, and your rates go up despite having a clean driving record in every other respect. Maybe the computer can use the GPS to tell when you're at a track, but when you're out there doing donuts in a snowed-over parking lot and no one else is around, and you're doing it safely, there's not even any, street lamps around for you to crash into. It's completely empty. Is the computer going to understand that? Is the computer going to be able to tell that you're accelerating safely to use the passing lane? Or you're getting out of the way of a semi-truck? Or you're on Route 30 headed to Philly, and there's an overloaded Ford Ranger with the cargo piled high at some scrapper or a hoarder, and it just has endless furniture in the back of this Danger Ranger, and you're like, I'm getting around this guy. I'm passing on the double yellow. This guy is a problem. Is the computer going to understand that? Does the computer understand context? Modern cars go out of the way to make us painfully aware of our own faults. That's why we have blind spot monitoring, backup cameras, lane change assists, and all of these other features that make you wonder why they're even letting us drive at all if they don't trust us enough to do it safely ourselves. But then you see the dumb things people do and wonder how we didn't end up with this babysitter tech sooner. People behind the wheel of a Tesla closing their eyes and taking a nap on the highway and just assuming the car is going to figure everything out. The end result is that our cars turn state's evidence against us, because that's what the tech is there to do. It's there to watch us and then report back to companies who will then try to figure out how to use that information to line their pockets. The Mercury Sable doesn't do this. And I know it's because it's from 1993. If Ford could have found a way to generate driving reports on every Sable owner that sped past a person spinning a sign for tax services while dressed as the Statue of Liberty, you better believe your folded ass they would have done it. But the fact that it can't do this is partially what makes the Mercury Sable appealing, because it's just enough technology without tiptoeing into voyeurism. And as for the driving experience, it's the kind of middle-of-the-road experience that you don't always get now. All right, Sable, you're on the highway. Can I roll into it?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, what do you got, buddy? 35.
Oh, yeah.
45.
Look at her go. Come on.
Oh, now we got the cam 55 miles an hour. She's starting to feel a little weird. Because right now in 2025, a car is either the fastest, most powerful, most biggest, most aggressive, most alpha male thing it can possibly be, or it's complete garbage for poor people that struggles to justify its existence. The Mercury Sable isn't that. It's okay. It handles okay. It drives okay. The interior aesthetics are all okay, and because of that, it's wonderful. There's a phrase along the lines of nothing succeeds like excess, but I'd argue that going completely in the opposite direction can achieve the same heights. It takes real confidence to ride the center line, giving just enough to impress, but not enough to overwhelm. The second-gen Mercury Sable is an American manufacturer finally finding their footing in a way they never did in the 1980s, with the exception of your occasional Capri, your C4 Corvettes, and the Buick Grand National. Cars that offered contemporary futurism for everyday life. Those cars ushered in the idea that technology was here to stay whether you liked it or not. The Sable, on the other hand, said, yeah, technology is here to stay, but you don't have to be scared. It's actually quite beneficial. It was like a benzo for someone who read 1984 too many times. To the 80s, the microprocessor was like AI is now. Just saying the word AI either terrifies you, makes you come, or both. But by the 90s, having a computer in the car was no longer a novelty, and having EFI was no longer a selling point or a value add. And the Sable was a car that went through the routine of providing a more futuristic aesthetic with the full light bar. But if you really break it down, the stock light bar doesn't really give all that much light. I mean, back in 93, the original light bar was just small, low wattage bulbs. They were at best marker lights. You need to modify it with future tech, like Shane did with these LED scanners, to make it actually cool. And there's a charm to the dollar store futurism of a car that wanted to seem state-of-the-art without having to be as alien as something that actually is state-of-the-art. The light bar on the Sable was the only thing that separated the Sable from the Taurus. There was no difference between the cars. In the same way, there's no marketable difference between the Ford Crown Victoria and the Mercury Grand Marquis. The Mercury Grand Marquis, okay, from people who don't remember this stuff, Ford was supposed to be at the bottom. That was the working man's car. Lincoln was at the very top, that was luxury, and Mercury was in the middle somewhere. But they didn't really change anything between these, but by the 1990s, they didn't really change anything between these brands. Yes, when it came up to the Lincoln Town Car, you got air suspension, you got a bunch of other stuff, but it was still just a Panther body. But apart from the light bar and little stylistic choices, there's no difference between a Mercury Sable and a Ford Taurus. Same deal between the Ford Tempo and the Mercury Topaz. And in other brands, you got the Dodge Neon, the Plymouth Neon, same car. It took Toyota and Honda with their Lexus and Acura brands to finally remind the United States what it meant to go upmarket. But back in the early 90s, did people really want hyper-luxury at that point? The Gulf War was over, and there was a slight recession in the early 90s. And it was also the age of grunge rock and gangsta rap. Bling culture was a number of years away. We had pop country sound, an idealization of professional athletes.
Steroids? They don't know. There's no steroids in baseball.
The Mercury Sable didn't want you to wonder where your next kicks were coming from. The Mercury Sable just wanted you to stop overthinking everything and just enjoy a ride and believe, really believe, that the future is going to be okay. Thank you.
So one of the things I don't like about this and a lot of Fords of this era is like, oh, that one can't fit in there. Because this is one of the skinny ones. So it has to go in like that. And then if you got two people in here with 2 drinks, all your radio buttons are blocked.
Yeah.
So you have to move this out and then do whatever you want. But if you need to change the volume, you got your hands-free. Suppose that's what they called that. That's the hands-free volume knob.
Right.
So
because every like old person, it is hands-free, because if you're old, you got it in full steering
with your seat all the way
up.
up.
You're driving like this, so technically
it is
hands-free. Dude, my grandma on my mother's side, she didn't really drive. Most of my family just drive Mopar stuff, because my uncle owned a dealership and we were just getting shit at invoice, which is humble brag. But I'll never forget. What would have been? It was Chrysler New Yorker. She had Chrysler
those
New
things
Yorker
are nice.
for a while, late '80s, and
typical grandma.
She had the seat all the way up forward, pillows, and then the beads on top of that, and she would just drive like that, because like George Costanza's mom, she was just getting smaller every year.
Yeah, my friend whose mom had the Taurus version of this.
Yeah.
She would drive something similar to that, but she refused to say that she was blind. So she would drive, and she, one of her eyes didn't see as well, so she would drive like this all the way up, and her the side profile would be like and I'm like, are you okay? Going like that. She's like, oh, this is fine. I'm like, do you need glasses? I really do think you need. He's like, I don't need no glasses. I can see just perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And the steering wheel is like, I don't know.
Yeah. They're almost looking through it. Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, welcome to the Mercury Sable. I'm picking you up from school. I heard you got sick. Your mom and dad are working, so it's just me. But before I take you home, we have to go to the bank. I need to check my safe deposit box and make sure everything's still there.